let's continue to our official start. And for this, I would like to invite on screen my colleague, Mihaela Giovanno, for some words of the introduction. Mihaela, can you please join us?
Thank you, Liz. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our series of webinars. I'm Mihaela Giovanno, and together with a great team of volunteers and staff members from the World Scout Bureau, we had the opportunity to bring this project to you. As this period has not been easy, as we have learned to manage and adapt and live with the global pandemic, Scouting has stepped up to this unexpected challenge through the exceptional work of our National Scout Organization by supporting local communities and ensuring relevance for young people. Following WASM survey in September 2020 to assess the global pandemic impact of on the 171 NSOs, the Growing Strong Together plan was put in place to offer tailored support and resources for our National Scout Organization in these challenging times. Nevertheless, the pandemic has had significant impact on membership numbers and finance of our national organizations worldwide. The focus of this project is to support national scout organizations in the new financial reality. Luis, if we can move to the next slide, please. We are focusing on a couple of items, like strengthening NSO's capacity in the fundraising area, supporting NSOs to develop a strategy for fundraising and an action plan, as well as adapting these strategies to the new reality, and how do we approach our partners and our donors after a COVID-19 period. We also offer guidance and on identifying funding opportunities and how to write successful grant applications. And we leverage and we learn from the existence resources and best practices that we have across our national organizations. These webinars are about the resources and the best practices that we see around the world, and we invite you to listen and get inspired together with us. And if we go to the next slide, please. For the NSOs that are looking for support in fundraising and resource mobilization area, please access the WASM Services platform at services.scout.org. Under the section Partnerships, you will find fundraising and resource mobilization. We have here a selection of resources available for you, as well as we can offer support in person based on requests. So we do encourage you to assess the situation in your organization and ask for support as needed. I will leave you with Luis now to get inspired on crowdfunding and how to better use the Scout Donation platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mihaela. All right, let me just try this one more time before we dig into the agenda. I know we have interpretation here, so let me just finish that up. We want to really make sure that everybody's in and can understand us. Okay, just a second, please. There you go. Okay. And we are ready. Okay, that should do it. So again, I'm just gonna repeat it. I'll just put on the screen, mostly because we just added new interpreters. Let me share my screen again. All right, we're back. Again, if you need interpretation in French, Spanish, or English, please feel free to select these channels, and you will be able to hear today's session in these languages. All right, without further ado, thanks Mihaela for that great introduction. I think we are ready to move forward with today's session. So today we're gonna hear about a couple of things. We're gonna hear about what is crowdfunding in this new scheme or these areas that Mihaela was mentioning before. We're gonna hear about two special stories from two special guests that we have today, and we're gonna open the floor at the end for general questions and answers. So I just wanted to bear in mind that we will open question and answers at the end of every guest and one general question and answer at the end of the session. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them at the Slido code that we open it in the beginning. And no worries, I will show it again in a second. But please know that we will be receiving questions through the Slido application. I'll explain more in a second. If you have any questions, just feel free to drop them there, and we will review those questions at the very end. All right, then let's start with our first poll or our first activity of today. And I wanted to ask all of you, what comes to your mind when you hear about crowdfunding? And for this, we're going to use this Slido code. So if you have a phone, feel free to just scan the QR code. If you don't, you can join using your web browser by going to slido.com and using the code that you see on screen, G534. And again, the question for today is, what comes to your mind when you hear the word crowdfunding? And I already see, let me just share the exciting answers that we see on screen so everybody can see them. We see money, I think that's great. We see exciting projects, I think that's also linked. We hear about partnerships. Interesting, we hear about high cost. We will go there into a second. We hear new ways of fundraising. I think that's true. Raising money from the public, that's extremely correct. We hear about community, we hear about social media, we hear about money again. So I think there must be something around money related to crowdfunding. We hear about resources, and I think we're all in the same we are all in the right path. Someone wrote opportunities for everybody to create a better world, and I love this example. Thank you very much. It's really in line with the one that was written above. I'm just gonna share again the Slido code in case anybody missed it. Feel free to leave this open because we will have more questions throughout the session through here. So don't close that Slido. Again, join us through slido.com, use the code you see on screen, or join us using the code G534. While we give a couple of minutes for people to join, I'll just read a couple of more examples that we have that you can see. We have global support, I think that's true. Joining resources to make an impact and communities to help uplift themselves. I think this is quite important, yes. Let's read the last two ones and then we move forward with the sessions. Financement participatif, which sounds, it is something around commune finance or giving money to everybody in a commune way. A lot of people donating small donations, but with a big impact. And I think this is the good note for us to follow up into our next section here. So thanks everybody for giving your ideas or your inputs on what is the first thing you hear about when you hear the word crowdfunding. And we were all in the right path. Again, crowdfunding is about building bridges between people that have an idea and people that have a strong narrative or a project that they want to make a reality. And as you saw, a couple of you already identified what is required in crowdfunding. I see already a couple of them in your answers, but crowdfunding works through or is powered through the power of social media and your online and offline communities. This means that it is a place where you go and you submit your idea, you submit your project, and by the power of your network, and this is why we have networking here, by the power of your online and offline communities, you tell them your story, you reach out to your online and offline communities using the narrative of your project, of your idea, again, through the power of social media, it could be online or offline, to build these bridges that we see here on the screen, to connect people that have an idea and connect people that are in the same mindset in order for them to create an impact. So this is the idea of crowdfunding, telling the world about your amazing project, the thing that you want to do, and helping them join you by donating. It could be resources, could be not only money, but probably things that they can donate, money, time, volunteering, expertise. This is all about crowdfunding. So now that we have that out of the picture and we explain a little bit of what's crowdfunding, let's go to our second question here in the poll. And again, we're going to use this through Slido. And the question of today is, has your NSO used the Scout donation platform to raise funds? And the poll is open now. This means that maybe you have heard about someone in your NSO that have used it, or maybe someone you know in a Scout group, or maybe you've seen your NSO actually using it, or maybe if you didn't know it actually existed, you can put not yet. But the question is, has your NSO used the Scout donation platform? And let's give a couple of seconds before we show the final results. And I see that we have a couple of results here, and let's show them now on the screen. I believe you can see them now if I'm not wrong. I need to vote. All right, there you go. That's perfect. I think we have an interesting balance here. If you see what I see, if you're on Slido, let me just share my screen to make sure. We have almost, it's increasing still. We have almost 29% of or attendees today that they have used or that they know that the NSO have used the Scout donation platform. And I think this is great. And for the remaining 70%, that is slowly increasing to 67, don't worry, I think that's the idea of today, that we understand how, as an NSO, you can leverage on the power of crowdfunding for the needs of your NSO using the Scout donation platform. All right, let's go back to our presentation. And again, maybe before I go back to the presentation, I'm sharing my screen and you can see here the Q&A section where you can ask any questions that you feel throughout the session, and we will open questions for the different parts of our session. Just feel free to add your question here. If you want to add your name, please feel free to do it. If not, you can ask confidentially or anonymously, and just click on send. And your question will be here for us to look at the end of the session or when we are in each part of our different guests today. All right, with that being said, we're here today because we're going to talk about the Scout donation platform. And the Scout donation platform came to be in our last, or it was launched in our last World Scout conference. It is a collaboration between the World Scout Foundation and WASM to make sure that we provide an opportunity to grassroots level scouts and NSOs that just need an extra push to make their projects happen through the power of crowdfunding. So it is here available to all, both grassroots level scouts and NSOs that are looking forward to do something that they feel it will have impact in their communities, but they just need a little bit of push in terms of resources. So let's look at a couple of examples that we have in the platform already. We can start with the example of grassroots level scouts. We have examples from Mexico and Madagascar from scouts that were looking forward to help their communities through their individual projects towards alleviating the impact of COVID, of kids trying to continue their education. So this is Mao on the left. She donated tablets to kids that were not able to continue online school and internet plans. On the other hand, we have Safidi, for example. He's from Madagascar, and he provided washing machine devices for schools in order for them to have a safe environment in these learning opportunities. Both of them, again, are scouts. They're individual scouts raising money and their appeals towards the projects that they wanted to see. We also have examples of fundraising appeals done by regions. And this is, for example, when there are larger scale of projects that involves larger associations or larger activations involving many NSOs. And this was a case for the Inter-America region where a fundraising appeal was created to support NSOs within the region that were struggling due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we also have world level appeals, and this was an emergency appeal that was launched to support the activity that scouts in Beirut were doing to support their community after the explosion that happened last year. But you might have seen these examples. Again, we have scouts, we have regions, we have global fundraising appeals. But what about NSOs? And this is the main reason why we're here today. And let me show you a couple of examples, really creative examples on what NSOs have been doing. And the first one is one example that scouts from the Korea Scout Association, sorry, not Scout, that the NSO from the Korea Scout Association, they actually did. If you remember, they had a digital jamboree. And this is how they decided that this was an excellent opportunity to ask any international participant to their digital jamboree to go to the Scout donation platform and donate any amount to any project that they saw in the platform as part of their registration process. This created a huge amount of traction to the platform, and in specific to projects from the Asia Pacific region, making, if I remember right, more from 5 to 10 projects from the region being automatically funded throughout the period that this activation or this registration campaign was going on. So this is just one of the creative examples that we can already see on how can we support, or how NSOs have been using the Scout donation platform to leverage on how can they support their communities and projects in the platform. We also have the example a couple of years ago from Scouts of Brazil, that they saw an opportunity on supporting migrants from Venezuela in the border of their country of Brazil, but they didn't have enough money to keep funding this scouting program. So they went to the Scout donation platform, they told their story, they reached out to their communities, and they raised funds in order to continue implementing the scouting program in these communities where migrants from Venezuela were going to the border of Brazil, trying to help them merge or restart their lives in this country. So with this being said, I would like to invite our first guest of today, Bianca Iloaya. And let me tell you about why we're having her here today. Bianca and her team, Bianca, she was part of the national project team member of the project Scouts Together for Diversity and Inclusion and Sustainable Development in the Scout donation platform. They raised $3,000, and they are working as we speak in a project that is working to offer a number of 30 leaders from their national Scout organization in Romania the opportunity to grow through 2 trainings in the fields of diversity and inclusion and sustainable development. Later, this training will help these leaders to replicate this knowledge in local Scout groups across the country. So help me to give a digital applause or welcoming to our first guest, Bianca. So let me just stop sharing my screen and I'll bring you here. Perfect. All right. How are you doing, Bianca? Welcome.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for letting me be part of this. Hello, everybody. I'm really glad to be here and share my experience and how the project is going on. My name is Bianca. I'm a Romanian Scout, and currently I'm a member of the national team of education for sustainable development. And as we said, our project is still going. and I will give you a little bit context about the project before we start. So how it is going to be, Luis? Is this fine?
Perfect. Yeah.
So for the realization and implementation of this project, several branches at our NCO have joined in, bringing a contribution to the organization and therefore to the local community. Thus, we have scouts involved from teams such as diversity and inclusion, sustainable development, communication, training, and even from the national headquarters to unite in the best project uh, of this period. But because of the pandemic, we were forced to rethink some actions from the project, such as the trainings that were planned as face-to-face. Now we have to do them online. But the project is going well.
That's great to hear, Bianca. Before we start, I would like to remind everybody that if you would like to submit questions to this session, feel free to do it through the Slido. I will go over when we finish this segment. All right. I have a couple of questions for you, Bianca, because I think your project is really interesting. If I remember right, your goal was 3,000 US dollars, and at the meantime, we had an opportunity to open a dialogue for Peace Fund, where projects could apply to this fund through the Scout donation platform. But there were only 2,000 US dollars available, which meant that you had to fundraise on your own 1,000 US dollars in order for you to gain all and do the actual project. You managed to engage with 75 donors. What did you do to promote your project and to engage with these 75 donors and your audience to help you raise funds to complete those 3,000 US dollars?
Um, we use social media as a tool to mobilize our audience, mostly Facebook and Instagram, as they are the most preferred communication channels in Romania. We posted about our project also in our Scout groups um, on Facebook for the Scouts to disseminate further in their local communities or on their personal pages. Also, the message was simple but impactful, and I think that the core of the project is the most relevant factor in the audience engagement, as the work for SDGs and diversity and inclusion are also some popular topics in Romania, and a lot of people and organizations are interested in working in this endeavor. And in order to engage as many people as possible, I think it would help for the project to have an impact that could go also in the audience's community as our project does. It secures the training of ambassadors for diversity and inclusion and sustainable development who can later pass on to the communities in which they are active.
I think you mentioned a couple of really important points here. Is that one, again, you use the power of social media. Two, the topics that appeal to your audience. And lastly, how these topics actually impacted the audience you're reaching out. So I'm just sharing a couple of inspiration points that actually help your projects be a successful project. I'm thinking about what would have happened if you didn't have the money from the Scout donation platform. As in, would you have still run the project? Would anything have been different? Is there any other place where you had used this money to make the project happen?
So first of all, our NCO has already a strategic plan for this year that aims to address the needs for scouting according to our priorities, but also according to the local and national priorities. Therefore, the project was elaborated in collaboration with national teams, following the directions of our NCO strategy as well as of our community needs. Therefore, no matter if the project was fully or partially funded, we would have looked either for other funding sources or our own funds. Maybe the budget may have looked a little bit different in the sense that we would have cut some costs, but the main objective would have been the same. And we would have continued funding the project in a way or another.
Well, I think that's quite a relief. I mean, hearing that sometimes allocating budgets and cuts towards different projects can be a little bit of tough decisions for NSOs, mostly in this time. So I am assuming that having this external budget coming to support the NSO can actually help also for the NSO to continue their finances and continue with the budget to other areas that they needed to improve. Um, what about what are some of the things that you did in your project? And we have here a couple of spectators that might be having some pen and notes that they might be interested to know what happened in your project that managed for you to get funded.
Mhm. As I said before, we follow during this project some of our national strategic priorities and our scouts needs. So having clear objectives that address real needs in our scout and non-scout communities gave more importance to the project, and it could reach easier to people in order to get funding. Also, the collaboration of the national teams and therefore people with different perspectives and skills help to plan a well-structured project. And when we first saw the application process, we were relieved of the friendly and accessible form rather than the bureaucratic process that we encountered in other contexts. We saw this accessibility as an opportunity to succeed in addressing our problem, and that gave us courage and motivation to do this. I think that another thing that helped the success of the project was the design of it, the fact that it was well structured and consistent in the essence of the problem, plus the visual details such as a video and some photos that would show how the project would impact our community. I think that these are the main keys for the success of our project.
Thanks, Bianca. I think you've mentioned quite a couple that are key. And if I might echo them, I think you mentioned one of the biggest things that in crowdfunding is really important, which is to have a team. I mean, sometimes we think that raising funds is well, raising funds is not a responsibility of one, but in crowdfunding, as you mentioned, I mean, there are a couple of things that are involved. I mean, maybe who's working on the social media strategy, or who's working on the budget, or how to reach more audiences. So definitely, this is something that it's important to remark. I'm interested that you mentioned on the accessibility, mostly because the Scout donation platform, it's as you mentioned, it's quite straightforward. It's just ask what do you need the funds for and what is your impact. So I'm quite happy to hear that it was an easy process for your team. And the last thing I think is pretty crucial also for our attendees to know was about your narrative and the visuals. In crowdfunding, I think part of what is crowdfunding is talking about how will your project would impact your communities, not only in numbers but also in feelings. And when I say feelings, is how will their lives be changed. And these hearts or these emotions are what makes you connect with your audiences, which I think your project and your team did extremely well in order to fundraise. Um, this being said, Bianca, maybe for other NSOs that are watching us today, for other NSOs that are considering to fundraise, whether looking for any open funds or going to the Scout donation platforms to fundraise any programs like you did, or projects, small K projects for the NSOs, what advice or what would you tell them on where to go if they were to start their project today?
Firstly, I would encourage using the Scout donation platform as a tool for fundraising and also a way to connect with other projects if the vision and objectives are similar and this could lead to a partnership. Then it is very important to know what your internal need or problem is in order to address it and to be a real one that is urgent and needs your project's help. Having that in mind, it's easy to build on that and set your objectives. Having a clear image of project and how scalable it is makes it easier for people to donate. lastly, I think that team is really important to have diversity, but also a common goal to make a better world and make something meaningful for the community is the best recipe in obtaining the successful project. So I think that these are my advices for everyone that wants to apply, and I encourage them to do that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Bianca. Let's see if we have any questions for you today. So the floor is open, guys. If anybody has some questions for Bianca, the process, her project, how things went, and again, feel free to drop them on the Slido. I'm just having a look if we have any questions, and we can always go back at the end of the call. I'm just having a look. Okay. All right. I think that's all for now, Bianca, but we will let our audience think about the questions if they have any, and we'll come back at the end for any open questions. Thanks again, Bianca. I think your story on how your NSO is using the Scout donation platform, I hope it already inspired other NSOs that are with us today on how they can actually elaborate, or if they are already thinking on that kind of programs that they can grab and put into the platform and get going. I think that would be really great that you inspire them through your story. So thank you very much. We'll come back with more questions at the end.
Sure.
All right, so that was our first guest, Bianca. Let me just move to back to the presentation, and let me introduce our second guest. His name is Thomas. He is the group leader of a project or a group that it is in Slovakia, and he and his team, managed by him, submitted a project a couple of years ago, early when the Scout donation platform was starting to be something new, and they started in 2018. Their group managed to buy an old building around that was around in order for the Scout group again in Slovakia to host the regular meetings. And what's really interesting about this project is that they started a project racing against time, because they had the building, but the cold winter was fastly approaching, and they needed funds to renovate this house, insulate it in order for their activities to continue. So he has a really interesting story to tell, and some lessons that we can learn from him too. So again, help me to give a digital welcome to Thomas today. Let me just pin you into the screen. There you go. How are you today, Thomas? Oh, I don't think we can hear you. Not yet. Something happened.
Now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
How are you
again,
today?
thank you. It's perfect. I'm calling you from the heart of Europe, from Slovakia, from middle of the winter, because I saw some Tahiti friends joined, so we are in the middle of winter here. Oops, sorry. And yes, as Luis said, I'm the current group leader of our group of around maybe 100 scouts. And in 2017, end of the year, we've joined the campaign, the matching campaign, with our project where we wanted to finish the reconstruction of our scout house.
Thank you, Thomas. We also have a couple of questions for you today, and I think today we will hear your perspective from a project that it is, as it may sound, a small project. It is a renovation project with a really big impact. So I would like to start something similar when we started with Bianca too. You had 49 donors that help you achieve $4,500. I'll raise the same questions here. How did you manage? I mean, you have no more than 50 and you also raised almost 5,000 US dollars. How did you drive traction to your project? And most importantly, where did you find these 49 donors that were your audience?
Well, firstly, we shall mention that it was a matching campaign, so the donations were doubled to the number of the donors. But yeah, first we've been already present on the social media on our channels, and we've tested a couple of paid campaigns prior to the project. So then we created a really bigger, let's say, paid campaign to raise the awareness and to let everybody of our fans know about the project. Second, and maybe I would stress the second point, was the community of our former members, current members, the families of the members. So we had our mailing list. So we approached everybody via an email. Plus, many of us used our own private databases, I would say. This means colleagues at work or schoolmates. And I think this was as well important because only a social media campaign would not be sufficient. I think it's easier if people know you, that you are a scout at work, and that you are active as a scout, and then later it's much easier for them to contribute for a project or for a need that you have. And as you mentioned, last maybe factor was because we joined the campaign pretty last minute, so we had really maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get it done. So this sense of urgency as well helped to activate people, and with us it was really, shall we go for it or not? It was a high risk, but no doubt it was worth. So the limited period of campaign helped us as well. Yeah.
Perfect. I think you mentioned a couple of things worth to echo here again. One is the matching campaign, and this is something that we, from time to time, surprise, surprise, we have them in the Scout donation platform. But at the same time, this is something that NSOs or even people or scouts raising funds through the platform can leverage in their communities, getting donors that are interested or partners that are looking forward to collaborate with you, and also match donations. So I think this is something important that you actually mentioned. The investment in social media campaigns to attract online, and I think you nailed it when you said that you also reach out to people that you actually knew around your community. I think that's a great example of how crowdfunding works, not only in your online communities but also in your offline, face-to-face networking, and people that know you, that knows other people that are willing to help you. And lastly, that sense of urgency, I think it made the narrative more urgent or more appealing to donate now rather than later. So definitely. I think your project, it's one of the many in the platform that have a really good reporting historial. I mean, donors were able to see the progress week by week, or as the time went by, how the house was actually doing. So posting updates and reporting actually represents a really big part of crowdfunding. Whether you have the funds or not, it allows your donors to know what are you working on, or what are your next move, or what are you using the funds on. So maybe what tip can you give our audience today that will help them know how can they ensure that by the end of the project or throughout the project they have enough evidence of the impact and the results, so they can keep the trust for the donors, not only for the current project but maybe for future funding opportunities?
I think it depends as well on the goals that you set, and also on the expectations of the donors. But from my point of view, it's important to have a simple goal, which is at the same time understandable, easily understandable. In our case, it was pretty visible and it was something tangible because we were doing a reconstruction. So you could clearly see how the scout was looking before the reconstruction and after. So this may be the primary goal, I would say. But as you said, it was not possible to have some scout meetings in the cold house, and we needed this environment to be safe as well and cozy and usable. So our secondary goal was to grow. I mean, to be able to provide and to do the scout activities in normal conditions. And I think we set it as a goal as well in a project that we want to grow. And now after 4 years, we can say that we've doubled our membership. So I would say this is ticked.
I think again, I think we're hearing from two success stories. I think the fact that the membership has doubled, it shows how the donation platform can support projects that in the long term, as you mentioned, have this membership growth or impact in their communities. I think this is great. I think that's why you're here today, Thomas, because your project was also one of the success stories of the many that we have in the platform. Maybe can you tell us a little bit more about what are some of the things that you did that help your project get funded, and also to give some idea to our audience today that they are taking notes on, they can learn from your experience here.
Firstly, maybe I have to thank to our financial manager of our NCO because he mentioned this opportunity to us. We were not aware that there is a donation platform that we could use. So I would say this was a support from the national level to us. And I think, as I mentioned, that after the time I find it good and beneficial that campaigns are time limited, so you can use your resources efficiently and I mean in timely manner to get it done. So I think this is as well important, and I think it's good to have a person that is dedicated to the project. Ideally, if you have somebody as a fundraising specialist in your grouped organization. We didn't have that before, but I mean, it was in that time it was me that took care about the project. But later on, we created a special position in our group, and this person is looking for projects and is really dedicated for fundraising, crowdfunding, as you wish. So I would say this is what helped us to do the project.
And I'll echo something here. I think it's quite crucial what gave the spark of this idea, which was probably, maybe, hopefully, who knows, you would have seen the opportunity later on, maybe a little bit later, if there wasn't some kind of heads up from the national level. But the fact that they were supporting you and showing the opportunities that were out there, I think that was quite important and a lesson that I think a couple of our audiences today can actually hear. How can they support or target or promote funding opportunities not only for the national level, but also through their networks or their communications? I think that's something to call here. And the second one, which is this aspect that you mentioned, the dedicated project leader. As you know, some NSOs, to participate in the Scout donation platform, they assign someone to follow up on the process or the projects or the whole donation platform within the country. And I think what you just mentioned, having someone, and I'll go back to what Bianca mentioned too, leading or having that team, I think is the difference between a successful campaign or something that can maybe improve in a later stage in terms of how many people can be behind a project. So definitely. But we know that not everything is, sunshine. There's also some difficulties in crowdfunding. And we want to hear, or I would like to ask about what was the hardest part of your campaign. I mean, we know it was successful, but I'm sure you went through a couple of difficulties, and how you overcame those difficulties.
Although I have to mention that the project and the process was not bureaucratic at all. We had some difficulties with compiling the project or finding the right structure to make it understandable for the reader, for the donor. And we found somebody external. It was again the financial manager of our NSO that was overviewing the project from outside and gave us some hints what to maybe what to write differently. I think that's it. I mean, it was at the beginning, so really find the proper structure of the project, make it simple.
All right. I think that's something worth to mention too. I think a couple of NSOs or a couple of people that go through the first time of creating this project, they might find maybe a question on, or where do they start, or how to structure it. And I'm happy to liaise this to a couple of things that we will mention in the future, of resources that we have to support anyone out there that find themselves in this situation, as you mentioned, like structure, where do I start. So we'll share a couple of those in a minute. And the last question for you, Thomas, today. As you know, we are joined by NSO's representatives. What advice can you give them to support projects led by scouts, units, group leaders like you, or any structure within their organization? What advice can you give them that they can actually help and support scouts in their countries?
As we were lacking some experience with writing projects, so I would say it would be good to share some best practice, how to apply for projects for fundraising. So sharing the tips, the best practice, and especially for smaller groups, maybe to provide support from the upper level, because smaller groups they don't necessarily have somebody that is dedicated for crowdfunding, and so somebody that is skilled in writing projects, and then to help with the ongoing campaigns that maybe the smaller groups are having, to support them with the social media or platforms of NSO, so to gain a wider audience and to make the impact bigger. So training, I would say, best practice and support.
Yeah, and I think I would like to echo here the fact of scalability, and this is something that, as you said, this could be done into trainings, training people within the organization or the NSO, or scaling projects that have potential like yours. I mean, we hear, or your case today is a success case of a group that doubled their membership by a project, or supported by a project in the Scout donation platform. On top of all the efforts that your Scout group did. But this could be taken and scale it back towards a different group in a different place. I mean, there's a knowledge base that already happened, and how can this be taken by an NSO to escalate it throughout the country, sharing, as you said, these best practices that in the long term, by supporting these projects, the NSO can benefit in the long term. So thank you very much, Thomas. I think I hope, and I'm sure your story also encouraged NSOs to know more about the struggles and the successes that our scouts go when they have a project in the Scout donation platform, and how can this be scaled up, and how can they support the scouts in their communities. So let me just check. We have a couple of questions for you. As you know, our question for everybody, or question and answers are open all the time, so just feel free to drop. I already see a couple of questions, but they're quite general, so we might take them at the end. All right. Okay. No questions for now. So I think that was clear, and people are extremely inspired. So thank you, Thomas. Thanks again for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you, Luz. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. Let me just share back the presentation where we were left at. And again, feel free to drop your questions. And as time goes by, we will just answer them as we go through. All right. So just to summarize everything that we have heard today, again, the idea today is to let you know how can the Scout Donation Platform can support your NSO in a couple of dimensions here. And we had two success stories today from a perspective from an NSO that is running an actual project, and the perspective from a Scout group or a district that used the project and benefited the organization in the long run. So I think to summarize everything we have heard today, the Scout Donation Platform can help your NSO to fund small, medium, and scale these programs or these projects or initiatives throughout your country or your community. It can help you to support and fuel grassroots level scouting, as you just saw, whether it's supporting scouts to raise funds for uniforms, for equipment, for building houses or renovating places where they actually do their activities, ending up in bigger memberships. This is something that can actually help, again, by NSO supporting or identifying projects that have higher impact and going hand by hand and helping them through these processes, which later on can be escalated or replicated. Broaden your fundraising appeal network, and this is something that Thomas and Bianca were mentioning, how far they had to reach out to new audiences, whether it was current members, previous members, friends of those members that they actually knew, and how can this can help you broaden up. Who do you talk to? Who do you reach to? What audiences are you exposing or showing the impact of scouting in your communities to show the benefit of them supporting scouting in your countries? Collaborate with partners, and I think this is pretty interesting. When we heard about the matching campaign, I'll bring the example of the Korea Scout Association on how can you leverage or support the scouts in your NSO by partnering up with other organizations or institutions in your country that are willing to support you, but maybe not enough, they don't have enough resources to support you fully. And this can become a matching campaign. That being said, this can be a collaboration within in your country, targeted or channeled through the Scout Donation Platform to activate national networks, national audiences, and how can you leverage on that to improve your programs, your networking, and your communities in your countries, in your NSOs. And lastly, I think this is the bottom line: secure external funding, and this is something that Bianca was mentioning before. How can your national ongoing budget can be benefited or can be supported or in the wrong side of the tracks can be affected by not having enough funding to actually run these programs? The Scout Donation Platform can help you fund these small improvements, these small projects, and secure funding for a specific time of the year when you need it the most. So I'll open the floor now to the questions that you have been putting already, whether if it's a question for our previous guests or overall questions. We have thank you from Oliver. He's thanking everybody, and the session is very informative for our guests. We have questions. Larry saying thank you, Bianca. We have an anonymous question for Bianca, but I can help here as this is part of the Scout Donation Platform. It says, there is any fund ceiling limitations on the platform, and I assume that this person was referring to limitations on budget. The Scout Donation Platform currently has a top limit of $5,000 US, But as you saw in a couple of examples before, when an NSO has a dedicated partner, or there is a funding opportunity or a matching campaign, or when an NSO requests or shows that they can go above, or they need support, or there's potential to go above those 5,000 US dollars, I think this is something that we can chat about. Again, the Scout donation platform aims to support small-scale, grassroots level, small initiatives led by NSOs, but this is something that definitely can be explored if it's actually needed. We have another question from Lauren, and she says, she asks if the platform manage tax receipts. The answer is yes, but there is a specific fund. There's a specific amount, and this is done mostly with the support of the World Scout Foundation. If I'm not wrong, these are for donations that are above a specific amount, and I'm just making sure that I let you know how much this is. But for this type of questions, if you have more questions about this, you can go to scout.org/donate, and we have a dedicated space for open questions on how does the Scout donation platform works, including tax receipts. So let me just get that for you in the meantime on the session. Let me go back to that. I'm looking at any other questions that we have here. We have a couple of questions that says, does the platform get paid on projects? How many? The answer is no. There are no fees that the Scout donation platform takes. Any amount that NSOs or Scouts are looking forward to fundraise, 100% of these funds are disbursed or given to the Scouts or to the NSOs. This is again made possible through the collaboration of or through the support of the World Scout Foundation. And again, everything goes straight to the Scouts. There are no fees involved. 100% of the funds go through the Scout donation platform. I'll go back to the question on the taxing, and yes, everything donations above 5,000 US dollars are taxable with the support of the World Scout Foundation, and we can help you if you have any donors that would like to go through this process. Just let us know, and we can support you, connect you, and ensure that this goes and happen. So that's for the question on the tax receipts. I'm going for the other question that we have here. What happens if the campaign is not successful? This is a really interesting question, and the Scout donation platform is a place where it is all or nothing. This means that we really want to ensure that your project or your campaign has all the resources that you need to make your project happen fully. When a project doesn't reach the 100% of the funds, all the money goes back to the donors. And this is, again, to show that we support Scouts, and we want to make sure that you have all the resources that you need to make the project happen. If your project doesn't reach 100% of the goals, I think it will be an interesting time to reflect on what can be improved. Whether this is your narrative or your budget, maybe it's too high, maybe it's not realistic. The photos or the media that you are using, as Bianca was mentioning, are they showing the real impact of your project? And again, there's no limitations on how you can go run again for your project. But just bear in mind that if it's not funded, all goes back, and it is an opportunity to revise what can be improved. We have another question here that says, it is okay to use your own language, as not many people can use English. I think this is, again, a tricky question and a really interesting one. I would say yes, but you need to be careful here. Using English, of course, can help you reach a broader or a bigger audience, more international audience, if you're planning to, as Thomas was mentioning, putting some money on social media and to reach out to audiences that share the same topic of your project, regardless of where they are in the world. You can use it. Again, if you use it in your own language, the only difference is that you will be targeting local or your national audiences, which I don't say this is wrong. If this is done correctly, I think there is no issues and it can be done for any project. Just bear in mind that this required a really strong social media campaign or a promotional campaign to identify your audience really well and to identify how does your project relates to your local community, because this is the one that you will be talking to. It's doable, again, and it's recommended. So feel free to explore both options. Why not? I'm looking forward to see if we have any more questions here in the table. If that's not the case, I think we went through all the ones that we have open. Aha, we have a couple here on the Q&A chat, and I'll just read them out loud. They say, what creative ideas can we have to maximize the opportunity on social media? Can we hear more examples throughout knowledge sharing often? I think this is a great opportunity, and I would put this answer in two. One is that I think it's pretty interesting to explore when you talk to social media, talking about paid ads, knowing about who your audiences are, understanding how old they are, to who you're talking to, how much within which economical range you're targeting to. I would definitely suggest to take, and I'm sure there are plenty of resources on leveraging social media for fundraising or for any type of fundraising. Doesn't need to be crowdfunding. I'm sure there are a couple of resources online or trainings that you can actually take. One of the ones that I can immediately tell you is leveraging the audience that if you're an NSO, your national social media channels already own. I mean, this is a platform that you own, that you have, and it's an audience that already follows you, that already knows who you are, what you do, and they're only missing that link on how can they support you more. This can be either by sharing your content, by donating, by becoming advocates. Again, this really depends on the call to action that you want to give to them. And the second part is that we have a series of webinars that are starting with this session that will cover a really vast amount of topics, including reaching out to audiences. And I really encourage you, for everybody that wants to hear more examples about reaching out audiences through social media or offline communities, to join us throughout the full series here. I'm going to the next question here that says, is reporting required? And this is a really interesting question. Yes, I would say it is required. And at the same time, I'll echo what Thomas was mentioning here. The Scout donation platform talks about how can you show your donors that you are the best to do what you do. This means that in the Scout donation platform, there is a field for updates. If you have gone or if you are exploring the donation platform, you will see that there is a dedicated space where project owners share what they are doing. And by doing this, reporting constantly, they build up the final report or their final stages of reporting. So updating your audience throughout the process from launching towards finishing, I think it's one of the crucial ways to the question that is being asked here. Is reporting required? And the answer is yes, because all of the things that you have put together throughout the year to show, throughout your campaign, to show your donors that you are managing the funds correctly, that you are showing impact, that you are doing what you told you were going to do, at the end is wrapped up in the donation platform in a final update. And this is part of the process that is required as part of the funds, how funds are sent or disbursed. So as any other funding applications, you will always see that funding is quite crucial. And when we talk about fundraising, This is one of the major things that we need to take in consideration if we want to leave a good mark or a good trace for any future funding opportunities. So even if a fund doesn't require funding, which is a bit not as common, it's highly recommended that you do this reporting not only for the historical version of the project itself, but also to show success, impact, to wrap it up to partners, to projects, to other funding opportunities. So bear that in mind. It's really good to do it. We have another questions here. What percentage of projects to date do not achieve their goals? I would say really easy. If a project doesn't have a good narrative, if a project doesn't have a strong social media campaign, if their budget is not realistic, 100% of these projects are not funded. If you go to the platform, a couple of the projects that have these factors or these successes are funded, and the fact here that these are really simple things that can be managed or can be improved, can elevate your percentage for funding. So this is a small trick on the resources that we also have available for you to ensure that you reach fundraising success. I don't think we have more questions. I think you guys have been asking really interesting questions, and bearing time. I think we're in a really good timing here. So let me just go back to the presentation so we can wrap this session up. Next steps, and this is crowdfunding homework for everybody. One is ensure that your NSO has access to the Scout donation platform. Again, know that there is one person within each NSO that is called the Scout donation platform national administrator, who is the person responsible within the NSOs to support, to promote, and to leverage the Scout donation platform within the NSO. So identify that person, or if you are an NSO that doesn't have one yet, feel free to reach out, to let us know. And we're happy to onboard you on the responsibilities and how can we support you better through this person to leverage crowdfunding in your NSO. Next, I invite you all to get familiarized with the Scout donation platform by going to donate.scout.org. Again, donate.scout.org. This is where the Scout donation platform lives. Have a look, get inspired, look at what other projects has been submitted. Look if you can do something similar. See if the narrative of your idea that you have in mind has been there already. I mean, this is the opportunity to know what has been happening and how can you start a project and what information is needed to start a project. That, as Bianca mentioned, it is really straightforward, easy, and you just need to work on your narrative. And lastly, submit your own NSO crowdfunding campaign. I think we saw really good examples today by our guests, and you'll see a lot more in the platform. There's nothing to lose rather than time, and this time will reflect into experience in the long term. So again, it's not lost, it's not time but invested. These are skills that you can build up as you go by in terms of crowdfunding. So give it a try. Again, nothing to lose. Go in and start your first crowdfunding campaign. And with this being said, we've been talking about resources and things that can actually help you go through. I invite all of our NSOs that are looking forward to know more about crowdfunding, or if they need support launching their national fundraising appeals through the Scout donation platform, to do it through requesting a service on the Scout donation platform. Go to services.scout.org. As you're already familiarized with the WASM services platform, go to partnerships, and we have a dedicated service for crowdfunding. You can go there and you can already explore a couple of the resources that we have put or we have created. And keep a watch on this, keep an eye on this space, because this is where we will be posting resources that we do other resources that if you have developed the resources from other NSOs as best practices, they will be living here, or resources from any other place that will be interesting for you to build your skills on crowdfunding. So again, you can just go in, take a look at the webinars that we have created for NSOs to know how the platform works, how can they utilize these funds, and checklists for successful fundraising campaigns. And again, feel free to reach out, create your own service regarding crowdfunding, and we will be able to support you throughout the whole process. We're reaching the end of our session today, and what a session has been. I think we have heard a little bit of everything regarding crowdfunding, success stories, how can we leverage on experiences that we already have, and how can we support NSOs and our scouts. With this being said, I would like to invite you to the next session that we have here called Fundraising from Individual Donors. And you already saw it in the comments, but this will be next Thursday, February 25th, same time as today, 13 hours GMT. And this is the second session that we have from our Strengthening NSO's Fundraising Capacity. I really hope that the session today inspire you and help you if you're an NSO today, if you're a scout, if you're someone that is looking forward to raise a project, to raise funds through the Scout donation platform, to start your project today, and we're here again to support you. I'm looking forward to see you in the next sessions and also to see your projects on the Scout donation platform. So until that happens, thanks again for everybody that has joined. Before we say goodbye, there's one more question here from Hani that says, why can we change the deadline of the project after submitting it? I would invite you to reach out to let me know if you need more time. This is mostly because you have committed your donors. You have committed to your donors a specific time frame. So I will invite you to be fully transparent with your donors. If your project needs more time, whether you have reached your goal or not, we can help you extend. But again, be fully transparent with your donors because they have put trust in you. With this being said, again, I'm looking forward to see you in the next sessions, and thanks again for joining us today. I'm Luis Aguayo. I was really happy to be your host today, and I'm looking forward to our next session. Have a great night, great evening, or great day, wherever you're watching from. See you next time. Bye-bye.